So, what do we think?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Now, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joining me for another episode in his long list of appearances thus far, one of the co-hosts from the Pink Seats podcast, on-air talent from the state of Louisville, Keith Arutoff. What's going on, man? Welcome back.
Oh, always a beautiful day in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's even better when I get invited to hop on Locked On Louisville with you, Dalton.
Hey, man, love to hear it. Love to hear it. I don't know what to call you now because, you're doing a little bit of golf content where you and, Vince Lococo took down former college golfer Presley Meyer. You are doing a lot of stuff over there, which is awesome to see. But Keith is one of those guys where I've said it a million times, when Keith Arutoff is talking football, you need to listen because he's spitting knowledge. And I wanted to get Keith's take on this new college football playoff format that's been proposed, and apparently it's picking up some steam. So we got to talk about it. Also talk about this notion that it's college football playoff or bust for the Louisville Cardinals. I think Keith and I sort of agree on the take on this, but we'll explain coming up shortly. We'll also talk about another running back recruit that you might need to watch for, as he has Louisville in his top three, and he has scheduled a late May decision. That is 3-star running back Lekhy Thompkins. So a lot of football talk on the show. Keith, Ross Dellinger tweeted something out at the end of last week. He basically says there is growing Big Ten SEC support for a 16-team college football playoff bracket, most notably now I'm going to break it down. 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, 1 group of 6, and 3 at large. He goes on to say, with season-ending inter-league play-in games, 3rd place versus 6th, 4th versus 5th, as Yahoo Sports reported back in February. So a rumor that has started to catch a little bit of momentum and steam. What's your initial reaction to this particular format?
Well, there is growing Keith Arutoff support that my banking provider is going to make an error putting 7 figures into my bank account and not correct it. So, yeah, of course, there's going to be Big Ten and SEC support for a system that rigs the game in their favor. Because it's like, oh, well, they're only getting 4 teams. And it's like, there would be, let me do quick math, 11 Big Ten and SEC teams in that playoff every single year under that format. And it's stupid. Like, the game's already rigged in your favor anyway. You saw the mountains that we had to climb just to keep a 3-bad loss Alabama team out of the playoff in a 12-team format. I think it was Parker Thompson tweeted out a really good joke the other day, and it's like, the year is 2037. God, the college football playoff is looking into expansion to a 120-team field after a 7-loss SEC team did not make the playoffs. It's ridiculous at this point. Like,
dude, just the hypothetical Bama talk, like, dude,
hypothetical
Bama is
the
all-time best hypothetical team ever. You think that they were taking down? I remember the whole, well, could this Bama team beat the Cleveland Browns? and it's evolved into this, and there's a lot of joking about it, but there is also some merit in the jokes, and that's that, yes, the support might just be from the SEC and Big Ten at the moment, but to the powers that be, that's all that they've needed. Like you said, they've catered everything around these 2 conferences, and it's only going to get worse. If you come away from anything talking about or hearing us talk on this show, it's only going to get worse. it's making it to where you're trying to have a like watered down NFL, which, I mean, 16 teams, 12 teams was too many in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly there.
Way too many. And look, I predicted this. Now, high school Dalton, when he was sitting there right before that 14 college football playoff, I thought to myself, you know what? This in itself isn't bad, but sports gets greedy, and it's eventually, inevitably going to expand. And voila, 2024, we're at a 12-team college football playoff, and now we're already talking about 16, in which, oh, by the way, at the very least, one half of the teams that are going to make it are SEC and Big Ten teams. Like you said, they're already catered to. Now they just want we want to be promised that our teams are in there regardless, just because we might not get in with our resumes not being what they should be. It's just.
Yeah, well, you're making me feel old, first off, by saying the 4-team playoff was while you were in high school.
It was my junior year was the first year of the playoff in 15.
So I'm remembering back. Now, I long for the days back where it was the BCS before humans really started getting involved in altering the formula. Like, I could go back to 2011 when Oklahoma State got snubbed out of the national championship game because of human weighting tilting the BCS in the favor of Alabama.
Yeah, LSU should have been playing Oklahoma State that year. And, oh, by the way, Alabama, I just had to sneak in. And it's
so
I hate to say, at what point do we draw the line? But, Keith, it doesn't look like anyone's got a marker to draw that line or a piece of chalk to draw that line.
I think a lot of my frustration and irritation has gone away once I've accepted the fact it's not designed to be fair. It's designed to be compelling television. So they're going to do whatever mental gymnastics they have to do to bring in, one, the properties that the entity that puts on the college football playoff owns, and two, the teams with the biggest fanfare who are going to bring in the most viewers so that you can generate the most advertising revenue. And as someone who just likes the sport of football, that sucks. I want a game that's fair. That's why I watch Mountain West and Sun Belt and Pac-12 football, because once you start getting to where it's NFL junior and the money starts meaning more than the games, maybe this is just me being an old man. It takes away something from it for me.
I don't think it's you being a boomer at all or a soon-to-be boomer at all, Keith. I think it's ruining the game that we love, and you see it. I mean, there's so many people that aren't fans of those two conferences, and even some that are fans, they're like, what's happening to the game we love? And it's the same thing with pretty much all sports now or to an extent. But college football primarily, it's ruining the game. It's making it to where teams not in those two conferences, eventually they're not going to matter. But I do want to kind of ask you this, because I did see some Louisville fans saying, well, yeah, it's not ideal, but the ACC is guaranteed 2 teams into the college football playoff. What's your reaction to that, knowing that regardless the ACC would at least get 2 teams and thus, I mean, mathematically helping Louisville's chances?
In a 16-team format, the ACC, at least as it's currently constructed, should always have 2 teams in regardless, without any guaranteed spots. If you look at the final CFP polling from last year, the ACC would have had 3 teams in, with Miami, who was slotted in at 13, conveniently behind Bama, would have been getting a nod. So as long as the conference is constructed as it currently is, this is more of a hindrance to us than it is a helping. Like,
I agree.
I think the team that would benefit the most out of this is probably the Big 12, just because you're codifying 2 teams like we saw last year. Yeah. There's a lot of parity in that conference. And now there are a couple of programs that are starting to try and throw money at teams. Like Texas Tech is really trying to make a push to get good. Colorado really trying to make a push to get good. It just hasn't come to fruition. BYU, kinda, but they're really focusing more on the basketball side. So who knows what the college landscape looks like by the time this comes into play. I think this sort of format would help the Big 12 more than it would help the ACC, because you've got 4 or 5 teams in the ACC that are going to be good regardless,
Florida
unless
State's not
something
going to be
crazy
bad
happens.
forever.
Exactly. Like you have Florida State, you have Clemson, you have us, SMU, and Miami. 3 out of those 5 are going to be good every single year.
I agree. Group of 6 is also someone that benefits from this because they can't tell you, hey, look, you can't make it, because technically you can if you want to go the Boise State route or something along that line. But it also, I mean, look, you're kind of almost going to water down things in general because those 3 at-large teams, you know which conferences they're coming from. They're like, okay, ACC, Big 12, you got your teams in. Let's go ahead and let's throw in of course, every year is going to be different. Let's throw in the South Carolinas of the world. Let's throw in Mississippi State. Let's throw in, you name it, those mid-level SEC teams that get in, and you're like, you have no business being in this college football playoff, but they make it because of the name recognition.
It actually works out great if you look at last year's standings for comparison. So as we know, Alabama was 11, didn't get in because Clemson was a conference champion. They were ranked 16th, so they had a guaranteed bid, and SMU was above. So the 4 teams that would have been in a 16-team format, it's 3 SEC schools in Miami: Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and then the Canes. And then on the outside looking in, you've got BYU, Iowa State, Illinois, Syracuse, and that's just how it's going to go regardless of if you codify it or not. So I think this is one of those things where we're going to leak something that really sucks to piss people off so that then when
we can revise it some way. And
so then we can just propose, actually, we won't guarantee any slots, but we get more money, just like they did with the 12-team format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's just going to be an unwritten thing. They're going to add SEC teams in and Big Ten teams. Like, I mean, it's one of those. It's not like Shaq. We are familiar with your game. We're not apologizing because we are familiar with your game and we know what's going to happen. But there's a lot of variables that are out of Louisville's control. So that's why when people say college football playoff or bust for the Louisville Cardinals, my first reaction is stop doing that. And I'll explain why. We will explain why when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, the title sponsor of the show today is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. If you think winning is exciting, just imagine adding a $200 bonus in bets added when your first $5 bet hits. Well, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. If you head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet and it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing on along in the college football playoff discussion with Keith Arutoff from the state of Louisville. Now, I guess my Louisville City buddy as well. Keith and I actually watched the Lou City get hosed by the referees against Minnesota United's second team. But we're not going to have an episode on that because that could probably take probably close to an hour. But Keith, expectations have been something we've talked about a little bit on this show as of late. You know, I've said I think that Louisville should be expected to win 9 games, at least 9 games. Your over-unders 8.5 set by our title sponsor, FanDuel. And I said at least 9 games. I could see Louisville winning more, and had a buddy text me and say, I think it should be college football playoffs or bust. And I said, I'm going to talk about this because it's not you, so don't take it personal, buddy, but I don't like this at all, and I know you don't either.
Well, I don't agree with that notion that it should be college football playoffs or bust. I like the fact that some fans are starting to build up and get to those expectations. Love that. But when it comes to making the college football playoffs, essentially as an ACC team, because like we talked about in the last segment, you're playing in a rigged game that's already set against you. if you're saying college football playoffs are bust, you're saying ACC championship game or bust. And even then, you can't have any warts on your resume. And now I haven't done the full-blown schedule deep dive yet for my official, what do I think the team's going to do? But Louisville doesn't have a cupcake route in the ACC this year. You have your 3 non-con bye games that should be wins. You have your 4th non-con, which should be a win against that school to the east, but rivalry games are weird. But looking at the conference schedule, at Pittsburgh, we saw how that went last time, even though we were expected to win. Playing home against Virginia, who's a bowl or bust team this year. At Miami, who's loaded up with talent top to bottom like they are year in, year out. Then home against Boston College, another team that's really making significant improvement, I think, under Bill O'Brien. And I think they're another not quite bowl or bust expectations yet, but I think bowl game is the expectation for them. At Virginia Tech, for the first time ever as an ACC team, which is just wild because they're geographically the closest team in the league to us.
That is really weird to me. Same with North Carolina, we just don't play those two teams.
And then Cal, Clemson, who not only is an ACC title favorite, they're a national championship favorite. They're a really strong team coming into the year. And then at SMU, who got us last year, and Kevin Jennings is still there. They're still going to be a threat with Rhett Lashley at the helm. So you have room to maybe slip up once in the ACC. And if you do slip up once, it's got to be against probably either Miami or Clemson, one of the teams that's going to win the league. And then if you make the ACC title game, you better look good or you might get leapfrogged. So just to put the expectation of college football playoffs or bust is, I think, a little bit too aggressive. And this is someone who has been wanting the fan base to be more aggressive with expectations.
It's not that I don't. Here's the thing. I don't mind the high expectations. I have high expectations for this team. I think that this team can reach pretty high heights. I think that a college football playoff is in the conversation. I have a pretty interesting take on the fact that I'm not a huge fan of this college football playoff or bust tag because we've never made the college football playoffs before. And I think that that's something like, okay, you're saying that Louisville has to do something they've never done before or the season's a failure, because that's what bust means. Bust means that the season's a failure. I just don't buy that. I think that there is a legitimate chance they can get there. I think that, of course, there's a couple games that you have to focus on for them to get there, but I think that there's a legitimate chance. It's not that I don't think they can get there. I think that that's what people have sort of thought about when I've said I don't like college football playoffs or bust. It's not that I don't think they can get there. It's not that I think that you shouldn't have high expectations, because you should. If the expectation's to win at least 9 games, hey, you should be competing for a chance. But in a rigged game, like you said, in a playoff that you've never been to, I'm just not going to proclaim that the season's a failure if you don't get there, if you win, let's say, 10 games or so.
Yeah, and that's a very real possibility that people should come to accept. Say Louisville slips up against, let's say they lose to Miami and Clemson. They get the SMU monkey off their back, but Miami and Clemson both are 1-loss teams and go to the ACC title game. Guess what? Miami went 10-2 last year. They didn't get to make the playoff. So as Louisville, you don't have that brand name power to sort of get that friendly little nudge, and we don't bring the TV viewership to get us that friendly little nudge. So you could go 10-2 and not make the playoffs. If we go 10-2, exactly. I'm going to be thrilled.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it is we just saw Miami with the number 1 pick. They had all the aura. They had all the hype. They had the national support, and they had the best offense in college football with arguably the best player. And what happens? They don't make it. So what happens if Louisville goes 10-2 and they don't make the playoff? Is it still a bust of a season? I just don't really agree that it is, and that's where I have an issue with this whole college football playoff or bust tag. But I do want to get a little bit into recruiting talk with Keith on the show. Louisville is in the top 3 for a pretty talented running back who's deciding later this month. We're going to talk a little bit about Lekhy Thompkins when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the show. And as always, want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Keith Arutoff joining us for one more segment on this Wednesday edition of the show. Keith, we haven't gotten much recruiting news over the past month or so. We know it's still going to be a relatively smaller class in the grand scheme, probably less than 25 players for sure, but Louisville did make the final 3 for Lekhy Thompkins, along with Memphis and Minnesota. The 3-star running back ranked just outside of the top 1,000 in the 24/7 Sports Composite, but 6'1", 227 pounds. What's your take on what he brings to the table?
So I actually ran into the young man at one of the open spring practices when he had a invite up, and he was taking it. I think they're selling him short at 6'1", or maybe it's been a little bit since they've done a measurement. He's a big boy. It's really a unique final 3. So normally if you see a final 3, you can kind of get a hint of where a guy's going to go. Minnesota, PJ Fleck loves himself running the ball. So that's always going to be a threat for a big running back like this. Of course, we have Evan Hampton already committed to our 2026 class. I know depth is a little bit of an issue with the running back room right now. I think we have 4 scholarship guys in the room right now.
Yep.
And theoretically, if we hold on to all of them, that would leave us 5, potentially 6, if Lekhy joins the fold next year. And then Memphis, a hometown team where theoretically he could go in, get some early playing time, and then try to jump up a level if he sees some success there. So it's one where I haven't really got a lean on how we're looking.
Yeah, now, it's kind of difficult to get a grasp on Louisville's chances here. But if you're making a top 3 in a football decision, chances are you have a fighter's chance.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to player evaluation, I like to dive in and I take a look at players. First off, though, if you're going to trust any coach to blindly assess a player, I'm going to trust Coach Barkley with the running backs. But you get in and you watch his game, and his speed is, you hate to use the term sneaky fast, but he doesn't look exceptionally fast on the field. But then you see he's just beating guys around the outside with his foot speed and making huge run downfield. He's a very good back at catching passes out of the backfield. A lot of the plays you see drawn up, he's running like little swing routes just to sort of like the check down drop off. And then he gets the check down, makes a kid miss, beats a kid with his speed. And then it takes 3 kids to pile onto him because this is a big, big kid. It would be blasphemous to say Derrick Henry as a player comp, but you don't see too many 6 foot. I'll go with the listed height, 6'1" running backs, but it would be a nice change of pace to what we have with Hampton. Just a big bowling ball of a kid that you can throw at a pile, and he's shifty too. Like we talk about sort of the deceptive open field speed. He does have nice lateral quickness that he's able to utilize to make guys miss as well. He's not just going to be a huge kid that's going to bulldoze everybody, despite the fact he can.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I think he's like the perfect Kewan Brown replacement, short yardage guy. And look, even if everyone comes back and you give yourself some valuable depth and someone redshirts, I mean, Isaac Brown and Duke Watson could be juniors that go to the league with how good they are. Kewan Brown, I think this is going to be his 3rd year in college.
So he'll be a redshirt sophomore in the upcoming season.
I mean, Evan Hampton's going to be solid. I mean, you never know who could leave. I mean, maybe John Maurice Wilder says, maybe thanks, I would like to go somewhere else. He runs in a similar fashion to, if you've been watching Louisville for a while, LJ Scott, if you remember that name. He was 6'2", 225 in his last year at Louisville, and I had some really high hopes. Of course, things didn't really go the way they should, but the style of running was similar, that you might hit me, but it's going to take more than just you to bring me down. That's why this guy's got over 3,800 yards in his career and 51 touchdowns. He's also a pretty underrated receiver out of the backfield. So it shows you that, yeah, the speed might not necessarily be there from like a testing perspective. I'm not sure what he tests with, but he's blowing by guys. Like you mentioned, it's like, is the level of competition not there? Like, well, what am I missing here? But I also think it's interesting that there are national recruiting analysts out there that suggest that if he were to stick with the defensive side of the ball, where he also plays on the high school defensive line, he would be a top 247 edge rusher. And I'm like, okay, for whatever reason, if things on offense don't work out, you should bring this guy in, because he could also be a player that could transition to edge rusher, maybe have to gain a little bit more weight depending on what the role looks like there. But imagine how talented you have to be to where I'm an All-American running back. I could also be a potential All-American edge rusher. Like, bro, what?
Yeah, he's got a special frame, and like we'll talk about it more as it goes on, but he's closer he's closer to 6'3", 6'4" than he is to 6'1", just based on my personal interaction with him. He's a very
to myself.
Yeah, he is a very well put together young man who, yeah, he's an athlete. Like, you can put him anywhere on a football field and he will make a difference. I assume he would be coming into the running backs room here, one, because Coach Barkley's the one recruiting him, and two, that's just where we need the depth. But no, he has, if you could go find him on Huddle and watch his highlights, he's got a full defensive highlights package popped in there as well. So the kid, he's just a really, really good football player. One, I'm hopeful that we land, because we're probably only going to sign about probably 4 to 6 more guys by the time this class shakes out. So we'll see.
That's another reason why I wanted to talk about Thompkins, because I'm like, how many more opportunities are we going to have to talk about 2026 recruits? It seems like the staff is sort of shifting momentum a little bit to 2027, which shows me that they've done a bulk of their work so far, and they're just being very selective with their final spots. But I think he would be a perfect addition to this class, because you've got the bell cow running back with Evan Hampton. I mean, the kid's absolutely electric, and he kind of fits that MO of what you're looking for. But you also kind of have, I mean, in this class, of course, I'm drawing a weird comparison here, but like the Jordan Garendo type thing, where you got a really quick speed back, and then you got a guy that you're probably not pushing back for a loss of yards at any point when he's on the field.
And also just turns out to be a freak athlete once you actually get him into actual testing numbers.
The next Travis Hunter, is that what I heard? Instead, he's going to play running back and edge rusher. Is that ever? I wonder if that's ever been done. Like, not like once or twice. I mean, like consistently done. We're like, hey, this guy is a running back, but he's also got a couple packages as a pass rusher. I'm like, it's kind of a weird combination.
I would assume probably not, since the face mask has been incorporated, but who knows?
Since everybody had to play both ways.
Exactly.
Listen, when I played Pop Warner football, I played running back and, believe it or not, middle linebacker, which was a pretty interesting combo there. But edge rusher, I'm not sure about it. But that's going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the show. Appreciate Keith for tuning on. Tomorrow it's going to be Grant Mulligan on to talk a little bit more about the football side of things. Why, if you are a top quarterback, you should be considering Jeff Brohm and the Louisville Cardinals. Keith, I know you got one more thing to add.
Oh, no, I wasn't even going to say it. I was just going to subtly do it while you were dismounting. But yeah, if you like what I do and come on to the show, swing by the State of Louisville page. We got a lot of fun content. Dalton did a fantastic job plugging us earlier. We've got football, basketball, and baseball podcasts. We got a lot of fun, different content, including some golf action coming to you. Me going around trying the best bites in the city. We got a couple of shoots coming up for that. So if you like what we're doing over there, feel free to swing by.